What's up, everybody? Mike here, and in this Baldur's Gate 3 video, there is some insanely massive news and updates going on lately that dropped from GDC by Larian as well. Basically, the future of Baldur's Gate 3 and Larian Studios itself, and what's happening, what's going on. So in case you missed out on this and don't know what's going on with DLC plans and other things and updates with Baldur's Gate 3 and what Larian Studios is trying to work on next to, this is the video for you. So, at GDC, there was a panel. Larian Studios founder Sven Vink dropped something of a bombshell by revealing that the developer isn't planning to release any expansions or DLC for Baldur's Gate 3, nor a Baldur's Gate 4. Instead, Vink said at the panel, Larian plans to move away from Dungeons and Dragons entirely and do something new, leaving the IP and publisher Wizards of the Coast's hands. This is like a crazy, insane big surprise considering the massive success of Baldur's Gate 3. Like, literally, Game of the Year 2023 has sold millions of copies. Many fans assuming that, DLC or expansion will be on the way, or at least we're hoping, and Larian has released several major free patches that have added, among other things, a playable epilogue party. They've added so much, extra content and value to the game with these patches and updates that add more dialogue and extra choices and things like that, and quality of life stuff too, improvements, that make the game highly replayable without mods. Heck, they are working on official mod support. They're trying to get that launched later this year. It's insane, how great this game is and the love this game is getting. And I honestly hold Larian Studios in such high regard because they are an indie dev. When you look at the end of the day, this is an independent developer. This is not third party. This is not second party. No, Larian is an independent developer, and they won Game of the Year last year, among other great awards last year. They're one of the handful of game devs that have not been corrupted by corporate greed and other BS like microtransactions, things like that. And I commend them for it. I commend him for it. And I understand, when I read this initially and I was all this information, I understood by the end of it, okay, I get where he's coming from. I get why, he wants to do this and things like that. So you'll understand here in a bit. Let me get into a bit more details. So we'll carry on patching for a while. This is a quote from him. And then we're all going to take a holiday and we'll figure out what we'll do next. Butler said at the time. So that was a while back, right? That was, I think, over the, I think that was last year, right? And in case you don't know, Larian Studios is a developer known best for their Divinity series. They're the ones that are Divinity Original Sin 1 and 2, which are, great games in themselves. I have yet to play them myself, but objectively, from what I checked out and seen, those are fantastic games overall. And their next game could be another Divinity entry or something else entirely. I remember, Vink said originally that there was a sequel, the Divinity Original Sin sequel was on the horizon, but the team had to work on Baldur's Gate 3 first. And as of now, it's unclear if Hasbro, which owns Wizards of the Coast, will look to another developer for a potential Baldur's Gate 4, but the property has no doubt been hugely successful for them. And as I mentioned before, it is a huge hit with us, the fans that love this stuff. I've personally never been into D&D super heavy, and Baldur's Gate 3 sucked me in. It absorbed me, and I still play it. I still got, future content around that game I plan to do as far as build videos and more. It just takes a while because I'm busy with other stuff at the moment, so it's just been a slow process, but I still want to get, stuff like that out. Now, to talk about a bit more of why there's no Baldur's Gate 3 DLC and stuff like that, Sven talks about it because of all the success of Baldur's Gate 3. The obvious thing would have been to do a DLC. So we started on one. We started even thinking about Baldur's Gate 4, right? But we hadn't really had closure on Baldur's Gate 3. And just to jump forward on something new felt wrong. He talks about we had also spent a whole bunch of time converting the system into a video game, and we wanted to do new things. There are a lot of constraints on making D&D, and 5th edition is not an easy system to put into a video game. We had all those ideas of new combat we wanted to try out, and they were not compatible. He goes on to say, when it came to make the DLC, though, Larian was going through the motions. You could see the team was doing it because everyone felt like we had to do it, but it wasn't really coming from the heart. And we're very much a studio from the heart. It's what's gotten us into misery and it's also been the reasons for our success. And honestly, that's the end of the quote, by the way. But honestly, yeah, you see that. You can see that in their works like that, like the original Sin 1 and 2, like that. Those are games that are from the heart. Baldur's Gate 3, the base game, the full game in its entirety, is something that's from, their heart. And I agree with them on this. Like, I am all for, do not make or force, your team to develop something that, they don't have their heart in. Like, don't do it. It's just not going to be a good product at the end of the day, especially like if you're forced to do it. And I feel like a lot of other companies do this. EA, let's see, WB Games. Like, I'm looking at you, EA, I'm looking at you, WB Games, and other ones that kind of force, certain restrictions and or force devs to do certain content that I think deep down they don't want to do, at the end of the day when it's all said and done. But because, you got these devs that need a job, and how the industry is, all these layoffs that keep happening, things like that, it's like, this is probably a whole separate argument or topic, but like, it's always the conflict of like, well, I need a job, I got bills to pay, so it's like, yeah, I gotta, essentially keep my head down and follow what the higher ups say, basically. Or it's like, do you stand up and be like, no, and risk getting fired or laid off, and then if you're lucky enough, maybe you have money to start up your own new studio, maybe, or, or lucky enough, maybe you can get a job elsewhere, and sometimes it doesn't happen. So it's, these are people, real lives, and like, they got responsibilities, they got families, they got bills, this and that, like anybody else. It's like, it's not an easy thing to deal with and decide on. It's one thing to say like, oh, so they should have the balls to stand up and this and that or whatnot, but sometimes it's not always that simple. It's not black and white. That's the reality. Anyway, getting back on topic here. So Vink says that he took a vacation over Christmas holidays, and when he returned, his mind was made up. I came back and told the team, we're not going to do it. We're going to shift around, and we're going to start doing these other things that we talked about, that we planned on doing before starting on BG3. And they've always had plans, for things after Baldur's Gate 3 anyway. He says we have 2 games that we want to make, and we have lots of concepts, so let's just have closure on BG3. It's been great. We've done our job. It's a story with a beginning, a middle, and an end. So let's pass the torch to another studio to pick up this incredible legacy. And it makes a lot of sense, Like I said, he missed for how he doesn't want to force the team basically to do something they want to, that they want to have their heart in. And essentially at the end of the day, Larian was paid to do a job, kind of like a contractor in a sense. They were contracted to make this game, and despite how much they may love it, it's like that, they don't want to burn themselves out on it. They don't want to, do anything that would disrespect the property of Dungeons and Dragons and its fan base, things like that. So I feel like this is a smart move to do for them as a company, as a business, as a development team, and things like that, for the morale, the overall health of him and his team. And when he was asked about this, like how the studio responded, and Vink said the team was elated. He thought they were going to be angry at him because he couldn't muster the energy, but he saw so many faces elated, which he didn't expect, and he could tell they shared the same feelings. So basically, everybody was aligned with one another. And he had so many developers come to him and say, "Thank God." Vink says, "I'm always the one where it starts with the initial idea, and then I give it to the team, and they start iterating it, and they turn it into something much better. During BG3, I pitched to them what the next game would be. If I see they're excited, I'll say, okay, let's do that. If they're not, it's back to the drawing board." So they were very excited about a couple of things we were planning on doing. Then the pivot to start doing BG3 DLC was expected because it's what you do. We didn't have any antagonism against BG4 or DLC, but the heart wasn't there. It was more routine work than actually being excited. Now we had the excitement back in the room, and that's a big important thing. He continues to say the next game won't be Divinity Original Sin 3, and that it will be different than what you think it is, but that it's still familiar. And apparently he touts about how the new project will dwarf the scope of Baldur's Gate 3, which would be quite impressive given the scope of that game. Like, Baldur's Gate 3 is a massive game, And if they're talking about dwarfing the scope of that, holy hell, look out. Look out. Like I said before too, Larian Studios, with what they did with Baldur's Gate 3, put the industry on notice. They set the example. They raised the fucking bar, dude. And in the meantime, you know, Vink has confirmed that Larian Studios is still working on more new content for Baldur's Gate 3, including cross-platform mod support. There's also additional evil endings, and they're really evil. They're working on that. Like, I'm so happy about that. As if there's not enough endings to this game already, but still, I'm all for more multiple endings, whether good, evil, or stuff in between, right? It adds to the replay value. And with this, you know, you should get the idea, even though I kind of summarized a lot of it, that like they really care. They care so much about the game and its success, despite, you know, not wanting to do the DLC, because there's still gonna be a bunch of patches and updates they're gonna continue to support on. They're gonna get official mod support out, guys, soon, and cross mod support as well too. Like, you gotta give them credit for that. It's impressive because not every studio does this, and probably not a lot of studios would do this. Like, I'll give Bethesda some credit here where it's due, because the only other studio I've known to do something like this, where they try to do cross mod support or official mod support, is Bethesda. You know, because Bethesda don't care. They'll let you do the mods. They'll let you, like, you can mod the hell out of their games, right? And so you don't see this a lot from the industry, you know, and I love that they're embracing it. Larian loves this stuff. They like to see what the community comes up with, what the modders come up with, things like that, and work with the modders who have official mods for the game. It's just fantastic. I would love to see more of this in the future from more devs to, you know, work with modders, work with more creators in general to create such a more positive environment overall in the gaming industry for everybody to enjoy. That about wraps up for this video, guys. Please let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you did enjoy this and it was helpful, leave a like as well too. Subscribe if you're new. It's been a lot of fun to talk about, guys. And my name's Mike. I'll see you next time.